Welcome to the 401k Audit CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping companies across the United States prepare for their 401k audit. If you have 100 eligible participants in your 401k plan, then this podcast is for you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. I am really excited about today's podcast because we have a couple of additional auditors on here. So we thought it'd be really important for our listeners. You know, oftentimes you're getting audited and you're not really sure who the people are that are auditing you, what their background are. And if you listen to this podcast, you've become fairly comfortable with Kim and you kind of know her really well. But we thought it'd be good just to bring on some of our newer team members to really understand where they come from and kind of the remote auditing world from them. So Kim, I'm going to let you introduce both of them since they're your team members, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jamie. We have two new faces here, so you don't just get to hear from me like you've been hearing in our previous podcast. I have Chasity Price with us, and Chasity joined us a couple of months ago. She's our newest full-time member on the team, and we also have Lauren Van Wyngarden. Lauren has been working with us, I think, probably about the same amount of time, Lauren. It's been a couple months
now. Yeah.
Yeah. She's an intern. She joins us from, she's actually working from home, but she's going to school at Indiana University, Kelley School of Business. And we're glad to have her. So we've got her for about another month. And Lauren is obviously still in school, so she has not graduated. And, this is just an internship here for her. But we thought Lauren would be able to bring some great insights because she's brand new to everything, brand new to auditing and brand new to 401ks. And
Exactly.
Brand new experience for her.
Yeah. With that said, I'd love to start with you for the first question, Lauren. So I know, obviously I was an accounting major as well, and I started my world in audit, and I felt like the transition from audit classes to the actual audit world is probably one of the most differences in any career. So do you want to talk about that a little bit and kind of what you found doing for your first couple of audits?
Yeah, definitely. This internship is the first glimpse that I even had into auditing. At Indiana University, I won't even take an audit specific class until I think it's my senior year. And so just from going from like the basics of accounting, doing different transactions. So now I'm in the real world getting to see audit, in action. I really had no expectations. I didn't know what it was going to be like. So pretty much anything I know about auditing has come from Summit. So it's been quite the learning experience this summer. I'm very thankful for it.
So,
good.
Yeah. So Chasity, do you want to explain a little bit the difference? Have you done different audits or 401k audits other than 401k audits? If you want to explain kind of the difference for Lauren, like what it's like to do a financial audit versus a 401k audit and kind of how those two worlds collide.
Right. So before I started working here, I've had experience in the governmental nonprofit industry and then also in the low income housing industry. So that was my job before I actually started working at Summit. So it's completely different. The only thing that I would say is about the same is just the compliance aspect of it. So just the actual looking at the guidelines set forth by the government regulators and just making sure that each client is in compliance with those guidelines. That would be about the thing that's the same with 401k audits and the just the audit of like governmental, nonprofit, and the low income housing industries. I can say that the 401k audits are a lot more complex than what I am used to working with. Like my old job, our audits would hours.
Oh, there you go.
But 3 or 4 hours, just kind of depending on if they did have just like HUD compliance aspect to it, and if it didn't, it went by really, really fast. So I would say that even though I do have experience in auditing, 401k audits is just something completely new. It's just on different industry to me, seems like.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned the word compliance audit, Chastity. So I want Kim to go into that a little bit more. I know I've done both financial and compliance audits. So you want to kind of talk about the difference there and how that's different for most
Yeah,
auditors?
these audits are very different. I mean, Chastity hits the nail right on the head. Most audits are financial statement audits almost exclusively. So, whether that's a company audit or even a not-for-profit audit, whatever the entity is, they had money coming in, they had money coming out, they made profit, or in the case of not-for-profit, maybe they broke even. Those are the elements that you're looking at. So you've got a general ledger and you've got transactions. You're testing transactions. You're testing different types of the flows on the balance sheet or the income statement. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously, different industries have different issues that you encounter, but the basics of it are all the same. When you get into things like 401k audit, or as Chastity mentioned, other governmental type audits, you have both elements. So you still have financial statements. Even a 401k plan has its own financial statements. They look a little different, but it's the same basic concept. You have to have statements. You're going to have footnotes. You're issuing an opinion on those financial. That part's the same, but there's this added complexity of the compliance elements. And so there you have specific regulations, laws that pertain to whatever it is. And in this case, it's the 401k plan world. In our world, the major governing body is a congressional act that was passed back in the 70s titled ERISA. And it governs all benefit plans that are managed for the benefit of employees that are sponsored by an employer. It governs all of those plans, not just 401ks. And there's a lot of very specific rules that come out of ERISA that are there to protect the employees, to make sure the employer is not taking advantage of them, not taking their money and not using it for the best interest of the employee. There's also Internal Revenue Service rules because, of course, most 401k plans have pre-tax dollars. So employees are putting money out of their paycheck into their 401k and they're not paying tax on that money. They'll pay the tax later on when they retire and they take the money out. So, of course, the IRS is all concerned about the pre-tax elements of it to make sure that no one is taking advantage of the tax code there in a way that they shouldn't. And then there's other things. There's other rules, other government bodies get involved in this. Congress passes acts all the time, changing things. And so those are all the rules that we have to make sure that the plan is following, along with the plan document itself. Most people don't understand that a 401k plan isn't a legal entity unto itself, and it has a plan document that governs how it's supposed to work. And if you don't follow that plan document, then you can get in all kinds of trouble, both from those same governmental agencies, but also it could become a legal issue. So there's a lot of different elements. It's I always say it's your standard traditional financial statement audit, and then plus it's got this other big huge section to it. And I think both Lauren and Chasity can attest to this, that from the auditor standpoint, the bulk of the time is actually spent on those compliance elements, not on the financial statement piece. For most of our audits, pretty straightforward. They're really not that complicated. It's the compliance part that's the tricky part.
Yeah. The way I've always described it, and Kim, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is, a compliance, the question you're asking is yes or no. Are we compliant here? Where a financial audit you're asking is, are these numbers we're giving to you materially correct? So they're kind of in the same realm, but two completely different questions. And so it's definitely a sometimes, whatever you're comfortable with, the other side's a little bit of a stretch for a lot of people. I know it was for me when I first started doing compliance audits. So.
It is. Yeah, it is. And those two questions relate together too, because if the answer to the compliance question is no, you didn't do it correctly, then that can impact, the numbers you may have $100 and it's actually $100, but it should have been $500. And so that's where that compliance element comes in, becomes very important.
Great. So I'm gonna change gears here a little bit. And so as everybody knows, we are a remote firm. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what that's like for you guys. So once again, let's start with Lauren. So I know, like you said, this is kind of your internship and one of your first jobs. But again, explain what it's like working remote and kind of how that's any life changes or things you've had to do in order to adapt to that.
Yeah, I would say something I love about working from home is just the efficiency and convenience of it. It's so easy just to get out of bed and go to the next room. Or for me, I'm just working at a desk in my room. And so the commute, is seconds. But just getting on meetings and connecting with coworkers just feels so quick and easy. I can just knock on anyone's door on our software we use, Coco, and just get with somebody right away without having to walk down a hall or something, which doesn't take the most time, but over time that adds up, and you are saving yourself a lot of time. And it definitely feels more flexible working from home. And I can imagine when you have a family and kids to manage, that is something that's super helpful. However, a challenge of it, I would say, is the self-motivation aspect. You don't have somebody in the cubicle next to you telling you to get busy. And so as my first real world experience, like I said earlier, it's been good to kind of navigate that and really test my own self-motivation and continue to work hard from, 8 to 5 every day.
So has that been a challenge for you at all? Or do you feel like you've got it figured out and you are pretty self-motivated?
Oh, at first I was just exhausted by the end of the week. Even with remote, I'm still in the comfort of my own home. I was like, "Ooh, these 40 hours, it's a lot." But you get used to it, and it definitely helps being home because I can take, instead of like an hour-long lunch break, I can do, mini breaks throughout the day just to kind of break it up and give my brain a little relaxation. But I definitely love it. It's tempting not to get too comfortable because, I'll probably be in an office someday, but I definitely am really loving this remote work experience.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's a great experience for you because I know probably your next internship, you're going to be probably going to clients' offices.
Right.
So you'll probably be traveling a lot, whether that's just in the same city or it might actually physically. I mean, I know I did jobs where I was traveling internationally. So that it's a very different, work-life balance and just work experience difference. There's good and bad with both. I enjoyed what I did before, and but it's definitely different, and there's definitely adaptations needed on both sides. I think you phrased it very well, Lauren. Working from home sounds very attractive to almost everybody for a lot of reasons, a lot of which you mentioned, but it's not as easy as you might think. I mean, there are challenges to it, and it doesn't work well for everybody. That self-motivation thing that you mentioned is it's real. I mean, it's not just, well, I just need to tell myself to get up in the morning. I mean, for some people, it's very difficult. There's a lot of distractions at home for a lot of people. So it's not as easy as I think what people imagine it would be like if they've never actually done it.
Yeah, it's something we definitely screen for when we interview, especially if we're talking to someone that has, 10, 15 years experience and it's all been in an office. Like we have to ask those questions of, what is it going to be like to work from home? What are you excited about? And if people, the first answer is, oh, I really want the flexibility and I'm looking for this, that's not always the right answer. It's, you want to, there's lots of reasons to work from home, but I think your point about being self-motivated is always what I'm looking for. If you're talking to someone and, you can kind of to tell that they're going to need to be someone that's going to be pushed and you're going to always have to have your eye on them, that they're probably not the right candidate for us because you really have to have that self-motivation of, okay, I'm going to wake up early to get this, to get ahead on this audit, or I'm going to stay up a little later and get these procedures done. So I think you really do have to have that self-motivation in order to make it work. And I know that for me on the accounting side, it's been a challenge on the interviewing side to really screen that through the process.
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge too for people, just depending on what your home setup is. If you have a lot of people at home, and we've just gone through a pandemic where it wasn't normal. You might have had both spouses home, working from home, kids home, trying to do schooling from home. And those kinds of things present extra challenges. And so as we move forward and into whatever the new normal is going to look like, I think those are all things people are going to have to think about because you may have more people working from home, maybe more schooling from home too. Don't really know yet what that's all going to look like. But those are going to be real life challenges I think everybody's going to have to face. So Lauren, you're ahead of everybody. You're ahead of all of your peers because you've already kind of been there, done that. So.
Exactly.
So what about you, Chasity? Your background, have you had work from home before, or is this your first time? And if it is, kind of explain the differences for us.
Yes, so this is my first full-time job working from home. When the pandemic hit last year, we were a very small firm and kind of everyone had their own offices. So we were actually still going in the office to work. when the pandemic hit and everyone went on shutdown mode. We were actually still kind of in the office, just alternating days that we went in, because our firm wasn't as technology based, so everything was paper, as much paper as it could be. And so I was kind of used to it being having like my work papers in a file on my desk, something tangible to touch. And so it has been a challenge for me with making sure I'm tying my numbers back and forth, navigating through our online system. We did use like advanced flow at my old job, but it wasn't as detailed oriented as, of course, Summit is, because we are a full remote firm. So I guess that has been a challenge for me, with just making sure that I'm tying my numbers back, making sure that everything is flowing in my audits. And if I, put a reference here, I'm making sure I'm referencing it to the other work papers. So that aspect has been a challenge. As far as kind of what Lauren said, with the convenience of kind of moving from one room to another, that has, I like that. I do miss being like in the office setting, kind of going and walking to my next door neighbor's office and chatting it up. But as far as like Sococo, like Lauren said, that is I really like Sococo. So it's nothing to knock on someone's door, and you do a video chat. And so I think it's pros and cons to whatever. Now, once I feel like I get used to working fully remote, I probably wouldn't want to ever go back to an office. But it is a big transition working. I've graduated college about 4 years ago, so I've always just been in the office. So it is a challenge going from an office to a remote setting. But like Lauren said, if you do have that self-motivating aspect, it's kind of like you can do work anywhere if you're really motivated to do so. And then it helps when you don't have kids and a husband to kind of get on your nerves. So as long as you're by yourself, it's a good thing for me.
I think I get on my wife's nerves more than she gets on mine being here, because I was in an office for a long time, and then when I was home, every once in a while I'd go up there and I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm just doing my normal stuff." Go back to your office. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chasity brings up a good point. The social element is different. It's not as natural as it would be in an office. I mean, I think when you're in an office, everybody's going to get up and go to the break room to get something to drink, or go to lunch, or just go to the restroom sometimes, and you'll run into people in the hall, and it's very natural to just have conversations about nothing. I mean, things that you did over the weekend, or things your kids are doing, or, how's work going, or, for us auditors, we vent a lot to each other about, problem clients, problem situations, and I wish this was done and over. And so you would just naturally do those kind of things in an office setting, because everybody's just there. It's not so natural. It's not that you can't do it in a remote setting, but it's just not as natural. You have to kind of force it to happen a little bit more, which we try to do at Summit. We have events during the week. We have meetings where we have a firm-wide meeting on Monday where everybody's on there, and we're not actually talking most of that meeting about anything firm or work related. It's more, just kind of lighthearted and getting to know people. And then we also do retreats and things like that where we actually physically are getting together. Jamie just got back from a CFO retreat where all the CFOs got together, and part of that, they're talking goals and things that they want to work on and things they need to improve. But the majority of that time is just getting to know each other and just talking to each other and spending time together, eating together, and that's. That's
I'm
the
still
point.
recovering. Yeah, I spent a week in Las Vegas with the CFO team, and yeah, I think I was averaging like 3 hours a night of sleep. So I'm still
There
recovering a
you
little
go.
bit from that. But I'd like to piggyback off what you said, Chasity. I think that the most important thing to me that I learned when I was moving to working from home was, you do miss a little bit of that social aspect with your team. So what I make point of when I interview people and also when I talk to people about working from home is make sure you get it elsewhere. Like, again, I love my coworkers. I love Kim. I love everybody I work with, but there's also people that are my true friends that I, hang out with outside of work. And I make sure to like make time to hang out with them during the week. Cause that way I get those times. So one of the things I do is, I actually every Tuesday and Thursday, I make sure I play basketball, like regardless of what's on my calendar. Like I'm going to be playing basketball with guys and hanging out and talking to them. And then I know a lot of people like tell me, find an organization to volunteer with on Fridays, find like-minded people that you can hang with outside of work. So that way you're still getting that social aspect, because a lot of people, when they work from home, staying home way too much and they're there all the time and they kind of get like a little bit, what's the opposite of homesick? But yeah, it's like they're spending way too much time in the house doing just work. And it's like, man, I never leave the house anymore. So I make a point like almost every day to try to leave for something. And I think that's really important. So that way you have that social aspect.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. You need to make time. And that's another thing we really didn't talk about, working from home that's difficult. It's nice that you can just almost jump out of bed and go right to work. But it also can be very addicting. I mean, there's always too much to do, and you can always stay 5 more minutes and work, and that would be true in an office, but it's just a much more natural break that it's whatever time I'm supposed to be ending, or I got that task done, so now I'm going to leave and I'm going to go home. It's just a very natural thing, and you don't even think about it, you just do it. Where when you're working from home, it's like, oh, if I could just stay and work 1 more hour, I could get this done, and next thing you know, it's 11 o'clock at night and you've worked all day and taken no breaks, and it can be very, very addictive. So you do have to be careful. So very good point, Jamie. One of the things I wanted to ask Lauren, I know you're in school, in case we've got any listeners that are in school and they're thinking about audit. And I know you haven't had your audit class yet, but is there anything from your work here with Summit that you think was really helpful in your school, or as you go back to school, now that you've kind of had some work experience, something you're like, wow, I really want to focus on this as I go to my next classes, because I know that's going to really be helpful.
Yeah, I think just exposure and like learning the common terminology and things like that have definitely helped. Just overall awareness of auditing and, furthering my knowledge of accounting. But I think something that I will really translate into, my next job and post-college life are these like soft skills that I'm helping, or Summit's helping to like reinforce. I think, you kind of already touched on this. I think it was Kim, about working from home. You have to be really adaptable, and as the intern too, I'm just kind of switching from task to task when auditors are available to talk. And so I think that sort of adaptability and this online communication, being teachable, just those sort of soft skills, I think are going to be really beneficial going back to IU and, working more with groups. And I can imagine that more online aspects of our education will be incorporated to the classroom. And so getting to really be effective in the way I'm communicating with groups and teams, if we're doing Zoom and stuff like that. And so I think not only just the knowledge and like I kind of said, just exposure of auditing and all those things I'll take back to IU with me, but also just those basic soft skills that I think we tend to underestimate.
Yeah, very good point. I know people always ask whether you're in audit or accounting, any of that general area. They're always thinking, when you're interviewing people, you're focused all about, how good are you at math, and how, do you know the debits and credits and all that kind of stuff. And I've always said, actually, the things I look for are good communicators, people that are very adaptable. I mean, you hit on all of the key aspects that I really look at when we're looking for team members. The technical stuff you can teach people, and you're going to school to learn the debits and the credits and those pieces. Right. So you tend to get that, but it's the other parts that are, to me, more important. They're what's going to determine your success over your career versus just all that technical stuff. It's important, don't get me wrong, and you need it to pass your CPA exam and all of that, but it's the soft skill pieces and that emotional intelligence pieces that are going to determine your overall long-term success. So I'm glad we're helping with that.
Definitely.
I think that's going to serve you well. As you go back to school and moving forward in whatever job you end up with out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the audit world too. I think a lot of people, how many people, I remember being a kid and my dad, and again, he wasn't even in accounting. He'd come home and he'd complain about the auditors being there. Like no one loves being audited. So I think if you can develop those soft skills where you can make an audit less painless for people and make the conversations, like you really are just curious about their business and trying to learn things and help them get through the audit. And again, obviously, if you find stuff, you have to, sometimes be that tough friend. But I think just being there to have those soft skills is probably key to audit, because like I said, no one loves being audited. And if you can make it a little more comfortable for them, that is key. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to ask Chasity, how about you? Is there anything that you think if someone was considering going into auditing or thinking about a remote job, things that they should think about?
I think auditing is very analytical. So you have to be able to understand what the objective of what you're looking at. So if you have a list of rules, you have to be able to understand those list of rules in order to be able to know if the client is abiding by those rules. So for me, I didn't think that I would go into auditing right out of school. I thought that I would do more like on the accounting side, more bookkeeping, just like a staff accounting role where you work on the other side of the financials. And actually, I love auditing. I love being able to look at, just to be nosy. My mom always says that I was very inquisitive as a child. So for me, it fits my personality. It fits my thought process. So I think you have to be able to know. You're not going to know right out of school what it is you want to go into. So I think if you could give a lot of different experience in industries to find what fits you. And for me, I actually love auditing. And actually another thing that drew me to Summit was just that remote aspect. But whenever I went through my interview process, I was able to actually meet the team. And for me, that was something that was I've never done before. And I think that was a thing that kind of made me like, okay, well, they actually care, about the camaraderie within the team. And so for me, that was huge. Like I said, I've never met coworkers that I would have been working with beforehand, just to kind of see what it is like on their end. And they were able to give me more feedback because like our audit manager, Karen and Kim, wasn't on the call. So it was a more relaxed and very direct, and I feel like very honest and genuine type of conversations. And for me, that was huge, especially working in public accounting. Working as an auditor, you're most of the time like a number, and it's like, okay, you need to complete X amount of audits in this amount of time. And, it's very goal oriented based, and so a lot of your personal needs and, like Lauren said, like the soft skills, they kind of get thrown to the wayside because they want you to complete these amount of audits at this deadline. So it's very it's different working at Summit. So I actually, whenever, that was the thing that sold me on accepting my job position here.
Great. Well, I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah.
I guess that was important.
That's really good. So real quick, I'm going to throw our email address out there. You know, we're always looking for topics and guests. So if anyone ever wants to be a guest on the show or has a topic for us to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is audit@summitcpa.net. Again, audit@summitcpa.net. So we'd love to hear from you. So we are right up against the clock here, but I'm going to give real quick, just a 20-second final thoughts from the team. I really appreciate having you guys on here today. It was fun. So we'll start with you, Chasity. A 20-second final thought for the team on the audit world.
20 seconds. So I would say that it's very challenging. I feel like very rewarding. Getting to work from home is a plus, depending on who you are. And also just getting to know everyone behind the camera is a plus for me.
Great. All right, Lauren, you're up.
I would just say I'm so thankful for Summit and the experience it's given me. And like I said, just the exposure and getting to, put those problem solving skills to test and getting to look at a variety of different clients and, take a look at their audits. And it's been fun. Working from home is quite a great experience coming off COVID. And thanks for having me today.
Yeah, great. Kim, any final thoughts for you?
I just want to say thanks to Lauren and Chasity for joining us today. It's nice to have some other folks on the podcast and hopefully provided some information, whether you're a person in school thinking about career choice, or maybe you're an auditor thinking about working from home, or you're a plan sponsor thinking about, I wonder what all those auditors are really like behind the scenes. You got to see a few other faces. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, great, Lauren and Chasity. Probably have to have you on again. You guys did a great job. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website at summitcpa.net to get more tips and strategies for achieving 401k audit success. We're here to be a resource with ever-changing rules and regulations.